Hey guys, it's me. I know it's been a while, but I'm gonna get back in the habit of doing these. I've got a rig set up, obviously I've got my lights back on, I've got my makeup ready for filming, and here I am. So today we are talking hockey. We are talking about one of my favorite times of the year, the Stanley Cup Playoffs. So for those of you who don't know much about hockey, this video is for you. It's kind of your primer on how the division works and some of the things that you should be looking forward to. I'm not going to give picks because I'm going to be honest, I am not exactly biased. I do have 3 separate teams that I love to bits that are in the playoffs, so I'm kind of rooting for all of them secretly. But I will tell you this. I did well enough helping my dad pick his fantasy team that last year they arbitrarily changed the rules and said we couldn't participate. The first year we came in second, so not bad. By the way, his company was, most of the pool were Canadians, so I'm quite proud of that. So it has been a long 82 games. That is right, for those of you who didn't know, the NHL plays an 82 game season, and it's absolutely fantastic and exciting because afterwards now we head into the playoffs until we find out who's going to be hoisting the Stanley Cup. And there's a lot of really great stories going in. For the 6th year in a row, I believe, the defending Stanley Cup champs, the Washington Capitals, are headed to the Stanley Cup. We have the Penguins, who've been making an appearance in the playoffs for over a decade now. You have the Vegas Golden Knights, who are here to prove that their first year wasn't a fluke. You have other teams that are clawing back for redemption. And you have the Tampa Bay Lightning, who just tied the NHL record for the most wins in a single season. So, like, the record in NHL history. So it's pretty exciting. Okay, so for those of you who are fairly new to the NHL, the NHL is divided in 2 halves. You have the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, and each of those conferences are divided into 2 divisions. So you have 4 divisions in total. We'll start off with the Eastern Conference. That has most of the original teams in the NHL itself. You'll hear them referred to as the original 6 sometimes. In the Atlantic Division, we have the reigning champions of the season, winners of the President's Trophy, who clinched the trophy so early that like no one else was even within eyesight of the playoffs. It was absolutely fantastic. We have the Tampa Bay Lightning. They will be playing one of the wild card choices. So the way that it goes is through the entire season you accrue points. And those points move you up so that you're ranked within your division. And then after that, you're jockeying for wild card spots. There are 2 for every conference. And again, everything's all based on points. You get points for wins. You get a consolation point if you happen to go to overtime and lose. Because they're like, you just played, you tied 60 minutes of hockey. So the Tampa Bay Lightning will be playing one of the wild cards. It's the second wild card in the East. They'll be playing the Columbus Blue Jackets, who this year were mostly known for having traded away basically every single draft pick they possibly had in order to get a decent roster. Clearly they had their eyes set on making the playoffs, and they did by the skin of their teeth. In the second set of teams from the Atlantic that will be facing off, we have the Boston Bruins, and then you have the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm actually rooting for the Maple Leafs. I'm not much of a Bruins fan. Shouldn't surprise anyone who knows the teams that I do like. But the Maple Leafs have had a really great season. They've John Ferris. They've got Austin Matthews. It's a pretty great team. Then in the Metropolitan Division, you have the returning Stanley Cup champions who are trying to make a go for it again. Back-to-back cup runs are very difficult because if you think about it, not only did they just finish one season, but they played every single game leading up to their cup win, and now they're trying to do it all again. So if you don't have much of a new roster, that's a lot of hockey to be playing for 2 years. They're going to be facing off against those bunch of jerks, the Carolina Hurricanes. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, there is a hockey analyst in Canada named Don Cherry. He is known for being a blowhard and known for his very loud suits, which are just as loud as he is. And he likes to double down on how much the game has changed, how it's losing what makes it hockey. So the Carolina Hurricanes started doing this thing called the Storm Surge, where after a victory they would celebrate in some way, shape, or form. Part of it was because they've been losing a lot. Their attendance has been going down. And so they wanted to do something fun for the fans and maybe bring people in. And you know what? It kind of captured the nation's attention because you know what? I looked forward to every win, even if they beat the team that I love, because it meant we'd get another Storm Surge. So afterwards, they would do things. They would celebrate. They played Duck, Duck, Goose. They did Limbo. They did Duck Hunt. No, seriously. They had a couple players go out and pretend to play the game, and everyone else threw their gloves onto the ice like they were the ducks that they had to catch. They played basketball. They even went boxing. I mean, it was amazing. And everyone was having fun. The players, the fans, everyone except for Don Cherry, who said that they were a bunch of jerks. And that might be one of the top selling shirts right now, because the Carolina Hurricanes did indeed make a shirt that says a bunch of jerks. The other two teams going head to head in the Metropolitan Division, we have the New York Islanders, who sometimes play in Barclays Stadium and who sometimes don't. I'm just teasing. They had tried to announce their move to Barclays Stadium, but it became very clear that it actually made it one of the more difficult areas to play just because of all the traffic around Brooklyn. So they've been trying to get back to. They will be facing off against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Obviously, in the last few years, the Penguins did manage back-to-back cup wins, and here they are following the same pattern they'd had in those winning years, where it was a bunch of injuries. They scraped together, they made it into the playoffs, and will they win? Who knows? It'll be exciting to see. Over in the Western Conference, you have two divisions. You have the Central and the Pacific. Let's go ahead and start with the Pacific. You have the Calgary Flames, who won the entire Western Conference. They'll be facing off against the second wild card, the Colorado Avalanche, who actually had a pretty good year. They started off pretty slow, they ramped up, they clawed their way back in, which is a story you're going to hear again in a little bit. You also have the San Jose Sharks. They're going to be facing off against the Vegas Golden Knights, who are back to prove that they do indeed have it and that what they had last year was not just a fluke. They made some excellent trades during the trade deadline, and they came out strong. And best of all, Marc-Andre Fleury should be making his return. And, you know, he has some of the most playoff experience out of any active goalie there is. So he's definitely one big plus in their category. There are currently 31 teams in the NHL. So if you divide that, you end up with 3 divisions with 8 teams, and you have one with 7, and that is the Central Division, which is one of the toughest divisions because you have some really, really talented teams, and everyone's just vying for that one spot. So you have the Nashville Predators, who have gone to the Stanley Cup. They've gone far in the playoffs. Very talented team with PK Subban. Really, really talented. The great Pecorino is their goalie. They're going to be facing off against the Dallas Stars. This is their first time back in the playoffs in 3 years. They've had this is their third coach since then. This is Coach Jim Montgomery's first year, but it should be pointed out that even though it's his first year in the NHL, he actually did take he did take Denver University all the way to the to the Frozen Four, and they won. So isn't that cool? Frozen Four, best name. You also have the Winnipeg Jets. They're going to be facing off against the St. Louis Blues.
The St. Louis Blues, well, they're known right now for Barkley, the service dog that they're that they're helping to train. So that's pretty exciting. So one of the exciting things about the playoffs is anything can happen. You know, you can have teams that faced off against each other several times during the season and still come up with something that's totally unique and different. Case in point, the Dallas Stars and the Predators. The Dallas Stars performed admirably against the Predators. But, you know, it's a totally different thing when you get to the playoffs. Nashville, I mean, they're known for being a tough arena to play. Their fans are loud. They chant. And during the playoffs, they throw catfish. It's weird. It's gross. It's strange. But that's the way it is. And, you know, it's one of those things that, like, anything could change at any moment. And that's what makes playoff hockey fantastic. So, I'm going to say, if you have ever wanted to get into the playoffs, get into hockey, this is the time to do it. Because if you have basic cable or the basic package on DirecTV, you can watch any of these games. A lot of the big games are going to be broadcast on NBC. If not, they'll be on NBC Sports. They'll be broadcast on USA. I think probably even CNBC, sometimes the Golf Network, depending on how many things. But all of the NBC Universal family of channels, you're going to end up being able to see some fantastic hockey. And you'll come out of it knowing a lot more. And probably having a team that you want to root for if you don't have a local team to you. But anyways, I'm going to be doing as many of these videos as I can. If you have any questions for me, anything about hockey, because trust me, I love this sport, just go on ahead and leave me a comment. I will answer it in the next video. But I'm really excited to be back here. To everybody else who's wondering about my health, obviously, I am going to talk about that eventually. It's been really hard. I've been recovering, and I admit I am super vain and didn't want to see you guys to see me when I was really, really thin. You think I'm thin now? I was emaciated. And I've come a long way in my physical journey, in my recovery, and just wanted to kind of pace myself a little bit. I'm not exactly going to go into a whole thing about where you can find me. Most of you know where to find me on the internet. I'll put up a little card at the end with stuff, but I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you join me for some hockey, and yes, I promise I will start vlogging about other stuff too. Well, you guys have a great week. Talk to you later.